Well, we're about 8 strips from being home on this thing. And what I'm about to try to teach you here is probably the most difficult concept in this whole project. Now, I should tell you that every boat's going to be different to some extent. Some will be harder, some will be easiest. It's going to change a little bit depending on where your strips land, but it's all the same concept. So I'm going to spend time trying to teach you the concept of what I'm trying to do here. And then hopefully it'll all just kind of click and make some sense to you. So we finished stripping all the way up to the top. And now we're at the point where strips are going to come together and start meeting in the middle. Now on this particular boat, it has very peaked bottom to it right here. So we need to figure out a way to make these peaks meet. So there's a couple of basic tools you got to work with here, all right? First off, as we look here, we'll see that we have got this down angle that we cut, right? So this is straight down, kind of perpendicular to the floor. We also know that because we're coming in here, the strip gets smaller and smaller and smaller as we come down. All right, so that's the two things we got to work with. So if I was to transcribe that to this strip, it would look something like this. We're going to go from here up to something like here, and I'll show you in a second how we get better lines. And then we're going to turn it up at an angle, basically this angle, and we're going to cut down at it this way, okay? So there's a few different ways you can do this. The first thing I would suggest before you start cutting away at your own wood here is to take a look at the strip on the opposite side. You know, look at how it bevels down, look at the angle that you have there, and realize that effectively what you're doing is mirroring that strip to the other side. Now, it would be a perfect mirror and a lot simpler if all the strips on this side were identical and all the strips on this side were identical. Now, I told you before we started stripping the boat, or while we were stripping the boat, that this is what we call one of our shop junk strips, right? These are the strips that, a lot of them anyway, that we wouldn't send out to customers because there might have been a tiny flaw in them, but they're way too good for us to throw out. So we build boats here in the shop using them, knowing that, you know, we can get around that kind of stuff. So because of that, I use some strips in here that are, you know, were a little bit narrower than others. And so as you come up to the top here, you can see that, you know, I'm off by as much as, you know, a little over an eighth, a little less than 1/4 of an inch from one side to the other. So what that means is I'm pretty much freeforming this thing. Now, chances are you're going to end up, unless you strip it absolutely perfect, you're going to end up with something similar. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to make a couple of rough passes at that. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to press that strip down in there to kind of find out, well, about how far back do we need to go until the strips stop touching each other. All right, and best way to do that is to kind of push the strip down in there, take a look, see where they start to spread apart, make a little mark. Now on this end, we know that we have to come out all the way to the end. All right, so that's a good place to start. So now I've got a mark here and I've got a mark here. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that away and let's see where that leaves us. All right, now for the purposes of working on camera here, I got a short piece. So I'm not flopping around and whacking people and hitting lights and that kind of thing. You'll be doing this on your full piece. Now, it might make sense to use some scrap pieces to try to get it done the first time just so that you get the idea of what it is you're trying to do. Once you figure it out, then you just replicate those steps over again on the full length strip, all right? So I'm going to go ahead and draw a line and cut this, and that'll at least give us a starting point to take another look, okay? Okay, so I'm going to take this ruler here and I'm going to make a rough line that goes from those 2 points that we just drew on a piece of wood. And then I'm going to take a sharp razor knife and I'm going to cut along that line. Don't try to take it all at once. If you got a nice sharp blade in there, it's going to take about 3 passes to get through a strip of soft cedar wood. Be firm and don't give up at the ends. Make sure you cut all the way through so it doesn't chip out on you. All right, so So that gives me this right here. Again, it's a rough cut. Not really worried about that right now. We just need to get it rough shaped. So I'm going to take it back over the boat and give it a fit. All right, well, this isn't bad for a rough fit. It's a decent start. What we've managed to do now is we've got this bevel cut starting here where the strips start to break up, right here at the top. And after here, you can see there's a space that gets bigger and bigger and bigger. And we're going out far enough so that we've got the stem covered. But you can see that it's not rolling over and sitting down. Of course it's not, because we haven't put this beveled angle in here yet. And there's a couple different ways to do that. You can either take your razor knife and go down at an angle and then sand it. Or you can take a micro block plane and go down that way. We've been using the spindle sander here in all of our videos since day one. You can pick up an inexpensive Delta for 80 bucks. Brand spanking new out of the box. The one we have is a rigid, and we got it from Home Depot 5 years ago, and we use it. Matter of fact, now we have two of them. We roll them around the shop all over the place to do a little bit of sanding work here and there, because it sure saves you a lot of time. So I'm going to bring this over to the spindle sander and give you an idea of what I'm talking about, and hopefully when we come back it'll be really close and just little touch-ups. All right, so let's do that. All right, so this is an oscillating spindle sander, a little bit fancier than the basic models. The basic models will do just fine. The basic models don't oscillate, but usually they have a big round 8-inch pad here and one of these up top that doesn't go up and down. All right, so what I'm going to do, first thing I'm going to do is pass it along here straight so I can take that cut I made and kind of, make that good all the way down. Now, and then I'm going to roll it up this way at an angle that I think is pretty close to what's on the boat, and I'm going to cut in that way, and that's going to give me my compound angle. Let's go see what we got. All right, well, that was a pretty good first pass. Now, what you're going to see here is I got a gap up here, and it's closing up too tight back here. So what that means is my angle from one end to the other is too steep, and I need to lengthen it out. So instead of going from here to here, I need to go from here to about another inch back. But you can see that if I squeeze them together, it's getting real close there. Okay, so my angle is a little bit steep here. I'm going to loosen that up a little bit. I'm going to bring it back a little bit, and I bet it's going to slide right in. Okay, I'm pretty happy with this. I've got a fairly tight joint up here, and which will be, even tighter when I go ahead and put the two of them together and put some glue on it. Got a good peak, comes back here, starts to separate nice and evenly. So yeah, I think we're in good shape. So again, this was on a short strip, and you can see one of the things that happened is I kept messing with this angle till I got it right, and this kept getting longer and longer and longer. Well, the laws of physics say if it's getting longer up here, it's getting shorter on the other end. So make sure you start with a strip that gives you plenty of leeway to get this done, so that you're not ending up short when you finally get that angle right. All right, so all I have to do now is reproduce the steps that I just did to make this work. And I'll have a strip that'll slide right in there, full length. I'm gonna go ahead and put that on right now. So this is the full length strip, and you can see I've done the same steps, and I've got a nice tight fit up there. So I'm gonna go ahead and start by gluing, stapling, and work my way down and get it to the skeg back there. Let's just make sure everything drops in the way it should, and it looks like it does. All right. All right, so this is the next strip. Same exact principle that we just executed on the strip before that. The difference is you're going to notice that these are getting longer and longer and longer, right? And I'm going to show you how to do another one of these in a minute, because we're going to have to do one that has to be done on both ends, and it gets a little bit trickier. But again, you know, I started by going from here to here, cutting the angle, sanding it down flat, and then putting the bevel all the way down. So this bevel is starting to get easier and easier too, because as you can see, it's starting to stand straight up. So that'll go away. That'll make our job a little bit easier, but you can see that this fits in really nice. And again, I'm not worried about little stuff like here on the peak, because before all said and done, we're going to sand this down and flatten it a little bit, because we're going to have a keel that's going to come down right over the top. We'll get there, but just be aware that, you know, you don't have to be, you know, again, like everything in a boat, try to be as accurate as possible, but don't drive yourself crazy. All right, so obviously this is a tight enough fit. I'm going to go ahead and glue this one down, and then I think we're going to pretty much be close to the point where we're going to have to start doing both ends. That's a little bit trickier, but it'll be a little bit flatter. All right, so let me get this glued in, and then we'll start talking about the next one. So I got glue on both mating surfaces. I am going to very gently and deliberately push this up in there so we get some good surface contact. Keep going until it starts popping out, and then back off. That feels just about right there. So I'm going to drop a staple in here to hold everything in place. And I'll come back up here. Fortunately, I have a form right there. And up here, I've got no forms. So all you can do when you're doing this is drop a staple right over the top to hold everything in place. And again, I'm not overly worried about it because we're going to be flattening and sanding this out. That feels good and tight, so I'm not going to worry about that much. Now, what you can do, remember, you've always got your bungee cord. So if while you're building yours, your angle's a little bit different and that wants to pop up on you, it's time to bring out the bungee cords, wrap it around, and put a little block there to hold it down. I don't want to do that right now for me because I want to put in a couple more strips and that'll just get in my way. And I'm going to roll that strip right in. And I always go, you probably noticed I put staples here past the end. I do that as a continuation on of the strip so that it goes in the direction that it wants to go in. Kind of like when you're drawing a curve, you always draw a curve on both sides of the x-axis to make sure that it actually curves the way it's supposed to. All right, wow, I went in nice and tight. Drop one in here, just because, and that looks really good. So I'm going to go in and glue the glue out from underneath there, and then we'll get ready to start that next strip. All right, so I'm getting ready to do the next strip here, and you can see I got a big gap here, and it comes down to a point here. Okay, so what that is not a great first rough cut. So I'm going to try to explain this. This means that my angle is too long. That means from that point to that point, I need to shorten up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here, I'm going to chop off about 1 inch, and I'm going to re-angle it from this point to the point that it's already beveled to. And what that'll do is make a shorter angle, and that should get me a whole lot closer. All right, so I'm going to do that right now. Okay, well, this is obviously a much better pass. You can see that the strips are touching down at the bottom here. So if I put the appropriate angle on this thing, it should slide right up in. I'm going to go back to that oscillating spindle sander, put the angle on, and let's hope this one fits. And then I'm going to show you the big trick on how to do 2 ends at one time. Okay, so I got a pretty good fit here. So what you want to do now is make sure you push it up as far as you're going to want to go so that it's fitting in there. Pull the strip down so that it meets all the way down here. Kind of like you're dry fitting it. And then what you're going to do is make what we call a registration mark. All right, I'm going to make that mark right here. So what I've done here is I've drawn a line across the two strips. What that does is it tells me when I cut this other end, if I fit it in and these two lines are lined up, that the other end's going to line up as well, okay? So here's the trick. What you want to do now is take the strip and shift it down about a little over 1/4 inch. Probably if this is new to you, you're going to want to shift down about 1/2 inch. And then hold the strip there and go down and make your marks where you think you want them to be. So same as the other end, I'm going to mark the two sides, and then I'm going to cut a line going from one mark to the other, same exact way that I did at the other end. Okay, again, so this is just like the other end. You're going to try to be as accurate as you can because you only have so much play around room now. Make it nice, clean as I can cut. Okay, now I'm going to go down and dry fit this for angle. See if the angle's good, and if it is, I'll go ahead and put the bevel on it. All right, well that cut came out great. You can see that along the bottoms it matches up all the way from one end to the other, so now it's just a matter of cutting the right bevel angle on this thing. It should slide right in. And if I look back here at my registration marks, you can see that they're still just about 1/2 inch apart. All right, so these angles right here, these registration marks right here, when I cut those angles, they're going to start to come together closer. All right, so as long as when these come together, if I'm 1/8 of an inch off, it's probably still going to fit in just fine because the glue is going to make the two ends slide a little bit more. If you've come down so that they've met and you're just getting to right angles down there, you've probably gone too far. All right, I'm going to put that bevel on that and slide it in. Okay, so we got good news and bad news. The good news is we nailed this strip on the first try. Looks perfect, and I wish I could put glue on it, but I can't. The reason is if we come up here and take a look at these registration marks, you can see that I'm over by about 1/4 inch now. And what that means is I failed to take into account the bevel angle and how much that was going to make the strip slide down. So what did we learn here? Well, we learned that when we cut that angle right and we start this one about 3/8 of an inch prior, that we end up almost 3/8 of an inch after. So what we're going to do this time is we're going to set this strip aside. This strip is still good. We'll probably use it on the next one in, and one angle or the other will probably be real close to done for us already. I'm going to take another strip. I'm going to use this as a template to cut the angle. And then what we'll do is we'll set that registration mark just about 1 inch, quite a bit, just about 1 inch back there, so that if we cut that right and we slide it up, we should have plenty of room to slide it up and still make these two meet. All right, so I'll take care of that right now. All right, so I'm sliding this last strip in, making sure everything's still lining up here for me. And before I drop any staples on it, or glue blocks, or whatever it is that you're using, I'm going to go down here and check again and make sure that I'm lined up. There we go. All right, so my two registration marks are lined up there now. I need to come back here, make sure I'm still good to go up here. And again, you'll find this a whole lot easier if you get another pair of hands helping you out. There we go. All right. Got one in to hold it in place. Work my way down here now. And check my registration. Looks just about perfect. So So now I'm just gonna kind of bend this up a little bit, get myself enough clearance so that I can slide the strip down. Hopefully it won't snap on us. There we go. Yeah, pops right in. Well, that's a nice tight fit down there. And my registration marks, you can see right here, are pretty much perfect. So it's an acquired talent, something you're gonna have to try a couple times before you get there. But you will get there. Yep, that's a good fit. Now I'll just throw one down here. Keep that good and tight. Good. That's it. That strip is in. Great fit up here, great fit down there, registration marks in the right place. I got about 6 strips left to finish up this boat. The next 5 are just like the one you just saw. So if you need to see that again, rewind it. Because I'm gonna go ahead and do those, and then we're gonna talk again when we get to that final strip, which is a little bit challenging, but not impossible. So this is the last strip that we miscut, right? And you're gonna notice that, boy, that angle is awful close from one to the other. But the bevel is wrong. So I'm gonna take it over to the sander, I'm gonna change that bevel, and I bet that's gonna slide right in there, and then all I gotta do is the other end. So if you blow a strip, don't break it, don't throw it away, just put it aside, and you'll use that for the next one. Okay, so I'm gonna do the next 5 strips, and then we'll talk about that final one. What you should know is, you know, we have thousands of customers who have all gotten through this very process. So it's very doable. It's just a matter of taking your time, don't get frustrated, and work your way through it. You have to enjoy the journey. All right, let's get the rest of those strips in.